All right, welcome everyone. Hello and happy InDesign Tuesday. Terry White here, and I'm happy to be here to stream live to you today on Tuesday about InDesign. And today is another one of those topics that, again, people have been asking me for quite a while. We're going to be talking about how to create a book. It's one of those things that I've written books in the past. I've published books. I don't do it every day, so it's not something that's in my mind every day, but there are people out there that want to author their own books. There are people out there that want to author their own content and self-publish and create eBooks and all of the above. And of course, for books, InDesign is definitely the best tool to do it. So quick shout outs as usual. Colleen from Cape Town, Mark, Umix Jack, Jim Jr., NG Photography, Reggie, Michael, Kay, Cecily or Cecile, David, Victoria, Michelle, Danny, Thomas. Tom's in the house. What's going on? Jill, Andrea, welcome everyone. Wholesale Harry, Jamelia, everyone that's in the house today, welcome. Great to see so many of you here, which means that you are interested in this topic. Otherwise, you'd probably be watching something else or doing something else. So without further ado, let's talk about, hang on, I need to get my prop ready. I have a prop that I'm going to use. All right. I have to reconfigure my prop. But let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll talk about making and designing a book. So first and foremost, I'm going to switch over to InDesign in just a second. But when it comes to the size, format, length, and all of the above with your book, that is really up to you. I'm going to give you some guidelines to get started, because you got to have something. But don't take anything that I'm going to give you when I specify fonts or sizes or page sizes or length or any of that as, I got to do it that way or it won't work. No, you can use anything you want. But I'm just going to, again, get you through the process of building a book from scratch. We'll talk about some other ways to do it and then how to output your book when you're done. So again, if you want to design it a different way, different size, bigger, smaller, more pages, less pages, more pictures, less words, more words, less pictures. All of that is up to you. This is, again, so just to be clear, this is the book police will not come and hunt you down. All right, so let's switch over. I've got InDesign open as you would from scratch, no document open. And the first thing I'm going to tell you to do for this process is to go up to your Workspace menu in the upper right-hand corner, and you're going to choose or change it from whatever it's on. You can always go back to whatever it's on. So if you have a particular workspace like you've created from scratch, like mine, Terry White, or one of the ones that you were using that are built in, that's fine. But I'm going to have you switch to book for obvious reasons, because it'll bring up the majority of the panels you'll need to work on a book. So we'll just go ahead and click book, and that kind of rearranged some things and brought up some different panels and put some panels away that I wasn't using or wouldn't be using. And that's fine. So that's the first step. Step number 2. And this is probably for new users that think, I want to make a book. I must go up to File, come down to New, and choose Book. No, that's a different feature. That does relate to books, but I'm going to explain that one. It's in my notes. Yes, it's in my notes. I'm going to explain it later in detail, but that's not where you start. You don't start with a new book document. That's for a different type of workflow for books. For a more advanced workflow for books, we'll get to that later. Where you're going to start is where you start with any InDesign document, and that is create new document. Okay, so when you create your new document, the dialog box will look for templates. It'll come up. It'll show you where you last left off, recent documents, so forth and so on. And you can look for print book templates, which I've got here. I'm going to show you those later. And of course, you can create your own format. We're going to start with our own format because that way, even if you didn't have a template, you would know how to do it from scratch. Yes, this is in InDesign. Sorry if I didn't put that in the title. I know on some social media channels, I didn't say specifically InDesign. Yes. Is a book the same as magazine or catalog? No, not technically the same, but the process would be the same. So I'm thinking book like novel, textbook, you authoring your story, that kind of book. But could you use what I'm doing for a magazine or catalog? Absolutely. All right, so let's start off with something in terms of the page layout. So we're going to work. Now, again, yours might default to something else, and if you're more comfortable with a different measurement system, by all means, use the measurement system you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with good old-fashioned inches here in the US. So I'm going to say make my book tall. My pages are going to be tall, and they're going to be half of a US letter size. So 5.5, or actually 5.25, 5.25 by 8.5. So that would be half of, so like an 8.5 by 11 basically folded in half. 5.25 and 8.5 down. All right. No, that's not right. 5.5. I was right the first time. It's 5.5. 5.5 by 5.5 by, hang on, 8.5 by 11. So 5.5 would be 11, right? So 5.5 by 8.5. Yes. Sorry. Brain fart. 5.5 by 8.5 will give me my half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So, because 5.5 times 2 would be 11, 8.5 would be the height. Okay, got it. Next up, number of pages. That is totally up to you, but I'm going to say that you should specify an even number. You don't have to, but you're gonna see why an even number works better for you later on. Yep, Thomas confirmed, 5.5. All right, so again, you could say 10 pages for a small book, 100 pages, 1,000 pages. I believe InDesign's maximum document size for any one document is 9,999 pages. So technically, a really big book. So I'm going to start off just with something simple. I'm going to say 12 pages. All right, next up. This is the one of those few times where I actually want facing pages. I usually have facing pages turned off, but this is the one time I actually want it, and I'll explain why in a minute. Next, start the page numbering with page 1. That will come up later. We'll explain why you would ever change it from 1 later. And I'm going to have no columns, 0, or just 1 column, I should say. And I'm going to specify the gutter, which is the, actually, no, we don't need that because that's just going to be 1 column. But I'm going to specify the margins to be something nice and large, maybe like a 1/2 inch. All right. Now, the only other thing was this primary text frame. And I usually don't use it. What it would be for is it would be something that you would want a text frame to be automatically created on every page so that you could treat InDesign like a word processor. You could type, it would automatically flow to the next page, so forth and so on. If you're going to type your book in InDesign, that could be preferable. But again, it's totally up to you. So you could turn that on and it would be on the master page and be available for all your pages, or you could create your pages the way you always do. You drag out text frames and link them together and so forth and so on. So again, that is an option. I don't disagree with it. I don't agree with it. It is an option. You pick it if you want it. And so that's pretty much it. So again, don't get so stuck on the number of pages, because if you say 100, and your book only ends up being, 60 pages, you can delete the ones you didn't use. If you say 100, but you really need 120, you can add the other 20 later on. So this is just really a starting point. All right, so now that we got this in place, 12 pages, 5.5 by 8.5, 8.5 by 11, yes, that for some reason that is really sticking in my head. All right, we'll go ahead and create that, and that will give us our 12 pages. How do I know I got my 12 pages? Well, I trust it, but if I zoom all the way out, there are my 12 pages. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I got all 12 there. All right, now you'll notice what InDesign did. Because we told it to do facing pages, the page 1 is always a right page on the right side by itself. Page 2 and page 3 are next to each other, 4, 5 next to each other, so forth and so on, down to 9, or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes. So even numbers on the left side, odd numbers on the right side. So that last page would be page 12. The first page would be page 1. All right. And of course, in your book, you can start anywhere you want. Now, the next question becomes is, do I want to use this book document to make my cover? And the answer is yes or no. It's literally up to you. Some people create their covers in another document. Some people create their covers right in InDesign. It's totally up to you. So if we're going to pretend we're going to go with creating the cover here. So this would be our cover, whatever you want on your cover. People do judge a book by its cover, so I do recommend you make your cover attractive, something someone would want to pick up off the physical or digital book stand to look at your book. So now you begin to think about, what image am I going to place there? How, nice headline, what title the book's going to be, so forth and so on. We're not talking about book cover design today. So we're going to skip all that. Well, as a matter of fact, just for the sake of example, we're just going to put the word cover on it. That way, we'll know what this is. So again, don't get stuck on the design of it right now. We're just really going through the process of the layout. All right, so one thing I noticed right off the bat is that the word cover came in whatever my default font is, which I had changed at some point during one of these streams and never switched it to what I wanted it to be. So that word cover in whatever font that is really wouldn't be the font that I would use, certainly not for the cover, and definitely not for all my body copy. All right, so let's move on. So now, page 2, page 3. Again, usually you would think about page 2 as being like that inside cover, and page 3 being the first page that anyone sees. And it's up to you to keep that format or keep going. Maybe you want page 3 to be just a repeat of the name of the book and the author. Maybe you want page 3 to be the dedication. Maybe you want page 3 to be whatever you want page 3 to be, but that's page 3. All right, so now how do we start to figure out what we want in terms of formatting? Because formatting starts to become important right about now because we're going to start putting content in. And what I don't want you to do is putting content in without creating the necessary styles to go with it. All right, so let's think about that. Number 1, let's say that this was going to be just a repeat of the book title. So let's go to our text tool, and sure enough, it's in Myriad Pro Light Italic. That is my default font for this document, and it's obviously my default font for InDesign, which I need to go change. I love Myriad Pro. It's one of my favorite fonts. As a matter of fact, I'm going to switch it to regular with no text selected. So now anytime I create type, it will create it in Myriad Pro regular. So let's test that. If I were to go here and create just a text frame, and I would say the name of my book is My Great Book. It is in Myriad Pro regular, and we can center that. We can get that nice and big. And of course, we would then come down and say by Terry White and make that probably smaller and maybe a different font to go with that. All right. So again, formatting that you'd worry about as you go. I don't have a light on this. All right, let's do this. Let's make this. And see, I'm worrying about it now when I shouldn't be. I should be instructing. Let's make it bold. All right. So anyway, this is just a repeat of this. We're going to leave page 2 blank on purpose. Then we get down to page 3 and page 4 and page 5. So now you might start to put in putting in the content. Maybe this would be a chapter title, or maybe you're going to leave this blank for the table of contents. That's probably a better idea. So maybe your table of contents is going to go here. So let's do that. Let's just simply say that we're just using placeholders for now. This is going to be our TLC. We're just going to say TLC, our TLC is going to go there. And again, this is all up to you. There's no root, rhyme, or reason or law that it has to be a certain way. So you might have an introduction that goes first, then your TLC, or you might have your TLC, then your introduction. You might do it any way you want it to be done. All right, so now we get down to, let's say we're now going to get down to the actual content. We've gotten our dedication page, our table of contents, our description of the book. We've gotten all those things out of the way. Now let's say it's time to start with the actual content. So we get to this page and it's time to start writing the book. So chapter 1, right? So maybe we put our chapters on the left side as we begin our chapter. So chapter 1. And you would probably put in whatever chapter 1 is going to be called. Now when it comes down to actually starting to write the book, at this point we would want to create a frame. And again, if you had used that, that default option I showed you when you created it to always put a frame on every page, then this frame would already be here. Now, the next thing you should think about is, for the body copy, what do I want my, what font do I want? What do I want it to look like? And I am a sans serif kind of guy. That's why I like Myriad Pro, sans serif font. I love sans serif fonts, but most books, especially novels and textbooks and things like that, most are in a serif font. There's, again, no law, no rhyme, no, you have to do it that way. But I'm just telling you, most are in a serif font. So if I were going to set this up for the beginning of my book, then I would probably pick something like, let's see if I have Merriweather. I do have Merriweather, but I don't want Merriweather bold. Let's see. Okay, now it's time to go looking for fonts. Let's see what serif fonts I have. Start with that. Let's start with what I already have. I have Source Serif Pro. That's a good one. All right, let's stick with that. We'll stick with Source Serif Pro. Now, size. It defaulted to 12 point. That's way too big. Unless you're making your book for the visually impaired or people that have sight issues or older audience, you probably want to go 10 point or maybe even 9, depending on the book, but at least 10 point. So I'm going to say 10 point. And notice it defaulted to 12 point for the leading because it's on auto leading. Well, if I want my book to be airy and have a nice feel to it, easy to read, then I probably want to boost the leading because that will give me more space between the lines. All right, so let's say that we want our leading to be 14 point. And so now I can say, actually I can go down here and start typing. There we go. In the beginning. All right, we can zoom in on that so you can see it. In the beginning, there was a page layout application. You get the idea. All right, so now I want to save this. I don't want to have to recreate this again. And by the way, it should be Source Serif, not light. Oh, that's the only light one I have. Okay, so I would normally do a regular, not a light. But anyway, let's say this is the format that I want. I don't want to have to guess this, remember it, type it all in again, do it all again. So I want to save a style. So I'll just put my cursor anywhere in this paragraph, go to my paragraph styles, which is right here on the bottom right, and I'm going to click New Style. That will give me a new paragraph style. I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. I'm going to just call this Body. All right. Now that I got body in place, and it will remember all the things you just told it to do, so it's doing it all for you, then you can, like literally at this point, you've got this body style, you can begin writing your book. Like there's nothing stopping you from doing it all right now. But one more thing, or two more things before we move on. I just want to complete that thought. Okay. Two things. One, I need another paragraph style. I need one for the chapter titles. So whether I'm going to put the chapter title on the first page over there, to the left of each beginning of each chapter, or I'm going to put it repeated again at the top of the page, it's up to me. But let's say that we're going to keep it over there on the left since we've got it on the left. All right. So this chapter 1. And maybe we want a subtitle underneath it that will be the actual name of the chapter. So we'll say Getting Started. And of course that would need to be smaller. Let's do that. All right, smaller type, Getting Started. Okay, so chapter 1, and we will just call that one, we'll make a style for that one, and we'll call it chapter number maybe. Because that's all it's going to say is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. All right, and then we'll make another one for the actual chapter itself. So this is really the name of the chapter. So we'll create one more. Did I select that one? Yeah, I did. All right, one more. And we'll create this one and we'll call it chapter, because we already have the chapter number. All right, so chapter will be this one, and chapter number will be that. So far we have the 3 styles. Why are we making these styles? Again, for 2 reasons. One, if you ever change your mind, like if I don't like that font the way it looks printed and I want to change it throughout the whole book, I can just go change the style and it will update. Maybe I want my chapter numbers to be a different color, a different font. I can go change that and it will update. But the biggest reason is that you can automatically include specific paragraph styles in your table of contents so that it generates the table of contents for you automatically just based on using the styles. Okay, next up. If you're going to, let's finish this off with some placeholder text just so we'll have it. Let's go up to type and let's insert or fill with placeholder text. All right, so now we got all this just sample text to work with. If you're going to put images in, InDesign lets you lay out an image anywhere you want, wherever you want. So for example, I could just simply say that I want to put an image in right now, and let's go to my CC libraries, which I saw a minute ago. There they are. And let's see, what haven't we used lately? We haven't used, okay, we'll use the guitar. We haven't used that one lately. All right, I'll pull this image in, and I can drag this and place it anywhere I want. So I'll place it right there. And of course, that's now covering that text. So I would obviously want a text wrap around that. And the text wrap options are right up here. So I can say wrap around the bounding box, and boom, the text wraps around the bounding box. I could also bring up the text wrap panel, which also is part of my book workspace, and just literally increase the space around that image as well. And so that way, wherever I move the image, the spacing will go around it accordingly. Okay, great. The image is just free flowing, the text is going around it, and as long as I'm doing a print book, no problem. That works great. If I'm doing an ebook, that may not work great, because depends on the kind of ebook I'm doing. If I'm doing a fixed, what's called a fixed layout, then that's still okay, because the fixed layout is going to look exactly like the page. But if I'm doing a reflowable ebook, meaning that depending on the size of the person's display, the book will get bigger or smaller, or in terms of the text will reflow, then that picture may end up at the end of the chapter, nowhere near this text. So just keep these things in mind. If you are going to work on a print and fixed layout, great, do it this way. But if you're going to work on an EPUB that could reflow because it's a novel, then you need to handle your images differently. And what I mean by that is maybe you want to make them inline graphics instead of just placed willy-nilly throughout the document. So what I mean by that, I'm going to turn the text wrap back off for a second, and I'm going to cut this graphic out, like cut, copy and paste, cut. And then I'm going to put my cursor where this graphic goes. So it should go right there. And then I'm going to paste it back in. Paste. And what that will do is create that inline graphic. And then I can still do my text wrap around it. I think I can. Maybe I can. Maybe I can if I select it. Let's do it that way. And now we'll do our text wrap around it. Oop, hang on. Why am I not getting my text wrap the way I want? That should wrap around it, but hang on, maybe I didn't give it enough space. All right, there we go. So we'll do it that way. So we're creating this space for this inline graphic, and it's because we pasted it in like a character, that means that it will flow with the text. So for example, if this frame were to get smaller on a smaller device and that text rewraps, the image goes with it. So it moved down with it. Otherwise, the graphic would have stayed in place and the text would have wrapped around it and it wouldn't be in the same spot that you maybe intended it to be in. So just again, when you're placing images, think about what the intent of the final output is. Print, place them anywhere you want. Fixed layout EPUB, place them anywhere you want. Reflowable EPUB, like a traditional novel, you better care where the graphics go. All right, last but not least on that topic is page numbering. So same thing. If I'm making a fixed layout or a printed book, then obviously I want page numbers. I want people to be able to refer to the page that a particular chapter is on or a particular thing is on or an index item. In that case, and also we have an overset situation. Let's fix that. All right, there we go. So therefore I want page numbers. Where do I put my page numbers and how? I want them on my master pages. That way I don't ever have to think about it again. So you can create as many master pages as you want. You get a set by default. So we have the A master. And if I put a page number on the A master, that means every one of my pages would have a page number because they all use the A master. So let me explain that. So let's go in real quick. Let's grab our type tool. Let's create it below the actual body copy. And what you don't want to do is type a 1. That's not a page number. Yes, that's a number, but no, it's not going to be automatic. You want your page numbers to be automatic. So to do that, we insert a special character. Let's see, we insert a special character that is a marker current page number. So insert special character, markers, page numbers, and it will put an A there because we're on the A master page. All right, so now you can put whatever you want after it, before it, whatever. So I could put in, the chapter name or, my great book, whatever you called your book, whatever you want it to be. Now, of course, we want to duplicate that. So it's on the other side of the page as well, or other page, I should say, the right page. And to do that, I'm not going to recreate it. I'm just going to hold on my Option key, Shift, drag it all the way over to this side, and we will simply right align it. Okay, so now, and hang on, I actually want that to be on the other side. Hang on, let's do this and space and that. That's what we want. Okay, so now if we were to go back to any one of our pages, they now have their page numbers. Page 2, page 3, page 4, and of course you'd style them, make them the right font, make them smaller, all of that. But it's doing what it's supposed to do. I don't want a page number here. I don't want a page number necessarily here. So how can I get rid of the page numbers on the pages I don't want? Two ways. The simplest way is to simply use a master that doesn't have a page number, like the master for none, and drag that onto page 1. That gets rid of that page number. Drag it onto page 2 and 3. That gets rid of those page numbers. So now those page numbers are gone, but does that mean that now this starts with page 1? Nope. It remembered what number it is. It just doesn't have them on the numbers there's nothing on. So I can even get rid of that page number on page 4 if I don't want it. And that's still page 5. There is a way to insert what's called a section break to start the page numbering with 1 on page 5, but that's not what we're doing today. Okay, next up. So we got our page numbers in. We know how to create content. We know how to do our chapter names. We got our paragraph styles done. We're getting there. We're almost done. Let's get all the way down because the other pages are just rinse and repeat. Add your content, add your images, keep going. Now we get down to the end. The end is, let's say, our back cover. So we don't want the back cover numbered. Same thing. And we will then design our back cover to our best of our abilities, and we will make this, just for now, back cover. All right. Okay, so that's the back cover. And so far, this would be our book. Very boring book, but it would be our book. So cover, chapter 1. Let's for giggles, put in a chapter 2. So I'm just going to copy this. Come down here, edit, paste in place, and we'll call this one chapter 2, and we'll say it gets better. That's the name of our second chapter. Okay, so now, and again, we just start writing the second chapter. So now that we got all this done, and of course, we probably want to insert some more pages, but now that we got all this done, how do we generate our table of contents? I've done a whole stream on this, but the simplest way would be to go to your layout menu, come down to table of contents, tell it which styles to include in the table of contents. So chapter number would be first, and then chapter would be second. And then you can create a style for it, use that style. There's all kinds of things you can do. We can call it contents, table of contents, what's inside, whatever you want. So let's call it what's inside. And then we'll click OK. And that will give you the place gun to place your table of contents. So if I were to do this, we would get a table of contents that's styled exactly like we said. Why does that say chapter 1, 6? Chapter, oh, because it's putting the page numbers for those. Okay, so I'd probably want to go in and redefine that because those don't necessarily need page numbers. And maybe I want to make those smaller in general. See what it's doing? It's putting a tab and then that's on page 6 and so forth and so on. So that's what it's doing. All right. So we would go in and redefine what this all looks like in the style for each one of these. And of course you can manually do it. And I would probably take the page numbers. I don't need them duplicated. I'd take the page numbers off that style. All right. So that's how the table of contents would get created. And anytime you need to update it, you just click your cursor in there. So let's say we go rename our chapter instead of getting started. We call it in the beginning. So now that table of contents is out of date. So we just come in here and click and just go back up to layout and simply say update table of contents. And now it's updated. All right. Okay, let's talk about two more things and then we'll talk about output. So what if you don't want to do all this from scratch? All right, the lazy among us. All right, let's do a different way. Let's go to our new document, and you can do what I did. You can go to new, and you can come down here for search, and you can type in book. And when you click go, that'll take you to the web. It'll take you to Adobe stock, and it will show you all the InDesign book templates. And then you can just download the one you want. So if you see a template that's taking some of the work out of this, or a magazine or a catalog, some of the work out of your work, then you can just download it. So I've already done that. I've gotten 2 book templates from stock, and they were free. So a novel and poetry book layout and a classic book layout for EPUB. So that one's designed specifically for EPUB. So I'm just going to go ahead and open one of these. And here it is. Very similar to what I just did. A lot more laid out, a lot more stuff in there, a lot more, all of your paragraph styles and character styles, all that stuff's already in here. So all you'd have to do is just replace it with your content. So that's what a template's all about. It's like they did all the work for the setup. You just go in and change it to your heart's content. So they gave you a copyright page and a book page, and you just put your book title and your author name there, and then just start putting in the content of your book. It's all here ready to go. Now let's talk about output. Obviously, you could print it if you have a printer. Obviously, you could export it as a PDF and give it to someone else to print. But what we really have to talk about now, and this came up in one of my streams for InDesign, someone, or maybe it was a question on social, I don't remember. But someone really wanted to know how to do what are called printer spreads. So let's talk about that. Everything we've done to this very second have been what are called reader spreads. Reader spreads mean that, so the templates must have the style included. Yeah, they do. They're right here. So this template has all of the styles ready. That's how it created. Oh, this one didn't have the table of contents. The other template, hang on, let me do the other one. The other one had the table of contents already in there. Give it a second to populate, and let's do this one instead. Yeah, see, this one's already got a table of contents. So it's already formatted, ready to go, and it's one of the styles in here. Okay, but anyway, reader spreads. So reader spreads means I'm reading the book. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, so forth and so on. But if you were to tear apart any book, depending on how it's bound, it would be in what's called printer spreads. And I remember I said I was going to create a prop. Here's my prop. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 8-page book. Page 1 are the cover. Page 2, but page 3 isn't next to page 2. It is in the actual printed book, but in the actual paper, it's not. So in the actual paper that would make up this book that you would staple together or bind, page 1 or the cover is there, but then if we were to tear this off, this would be page 7. So page 2 and page 7, page 1 and page 8, page 2 and page 3 and 4 would be the inside, and this would be page 5. So again, if you were to take apart a book that was printed, the pages aren't necessarily numerically next to each other. They don't flow next to each other. So how do we get InDesign to do that? How do we get InDesign to make a printable book? Because what I could do, since my book is half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet, my printer can print 8.5 by 11, I could print my pages out, 2 up on a page, but they would need to be in printer spreads if I were going to assemble the book myself. All right, so how do we do that? InDesign's got that feature built in. It is called, wait for it, Print Booklet. Right here. There it is. Print Booklet. That's built in. So if I were to go to Print Booklet, and I were to do a little bit of setup, which means go to my printer and tell my printer that it's going to be using an 8.5 by 11 wide page, and I were to click OK, and we were to preview this, that's the way it would look. So page 1 and the blank page, page 3 and page 20, page 19 and page 4, page 5 and page 18. So see how those pages are next to each other so that when it's printed, it would be the right book. And this book obviously doesn't have the right number of pages. But anyway, if we were to go back to mine, hang on, yeah, my great book, and we were to do the same thing, print booklet, and we were to make sure the page setup is the same. It is not. There we go. And we were to preview this. Cover, blank page, page 3. Yeah, this is inserting a blank page for some reason. I need to go look at that. Oh, it actually looks right. 8 and 9, 10 and 7, 6 and 11, 11. Yeah, actually it is right. I should be getting my back cover though. Hang on, let me check and see what that did. But anyway, the print booklet feature is for doing imposition. That's what it's designed to do. Print blank printer spreads, yes. Preview, yes. 2 blank pages have been added to create this booklet. Ah, that's why I did it. And it's because, okay, probably because, yeah, these pages are, hold on, those pages are blank. That's why. All right, but anyway, if everything was done correctly, if the book were finished, that's how you'd make your printer spread version. So one last question that I get. What if I wanted to do that as a PDF? I'm saving the book right now, so I'm just going to call it my book. All right, so let's say I wanted to do that, but as a PDF. There's no print booklet to PDF. Why? Because you shouldn't have to. If you were going to send this to a printer, they would impose it. They would do it all from the PDF or from the InDesign document. So that's why the InDesign team never even built in a print booklet to PDF, because you just wouldn't need to do it. The printer would. But let's say for whatever reason you need a printer spread PDF. Then what you would do is go right back up to that print booklet. You would go in, hang on, turn this off for a second. I want to see what happens. Nope, it still did it. 2 blank pages have been added to create this booklet. I just told you not to. Automatically adjust. I just want to make sure I got all this set. Preview summary. Okay. Anyway, we go to print settings. We would make this our setup. It would be wide. But instead of going to my brother printer in my office, I would say that I wanted to print this to a PostScript file. Why a PostScript file? I haven't used PostScript files in years. Why now? Because if you do this to a PostScript file, and we'll go ahead and print it, which is just going to save it to disk. Yep, my book. Let's say book PDF. Save. It's just going to make a PostScript file that sits out on your hard drive. So nothing's going to happen. So let me go find it. So if I go to my desktop, there it is. There's that PostScript file. And if I were to then go to my applications folder, because I'm a Creative Cloud member, I have access to Adobe Acrobat. There's Adobe Acrobat. And I have this beautiful program called Distiller, which distills PostScript files. So if I were to take that and drag it on top of Distiller, Distiller will launch. Distiller will start processing that PostScript file, which is the way we used to do it decades ago. And it would make a PDF from that PostScript file that would be imposed. So it has got the pages next to each other that belong next to each other based on the PostScript file. So it would just do the work for you, and you would have your imposed PDF. All right, that is, in a nutshell, how you would design a book. Now, I promised you that we would talk about that new book thing, because remember I said you don't do it that way, but there is a reason it's there. And what's this new book for then? Why is that even an option? What does that do? When you create that, it's going to come up, or when you choose that, it's going to come up and say, where do you want to save your book? I'll just save it to the desktop and call it book 1. Then it's just going to give you this panel. That's it. Nothing else. What is this for? This is for someone doing a big book or a bigger than themselves book, meaning multiple people are going to work on the book. Multiple people are going to have InDesign documents. So maybe I'm doing pages 1 through 100. The next person's doing pages 101 through 200. The next person's doing pages 201 through 300. So 3 of us are making this book, and we can only be in one InDesign document at a time. So we would be in our respective InDesign documents. Once we're all 3 done with our 100 pages each, we would take our 3 documents, one person would, and add them to the book panel. So when you click the plus sign, you're looking for an InDesign document to add. So I could add mine in, for example. I would add the second person's in, the third person's in. And then from there, I can print it as one book. I could export it as a PDF as one book. I could treat the whole thing as one book, even though it would be 3 InDesign documents. The table of contents would be the one book. The index would be the one book. All the page numbering would work as the one book. So it would all this is to take multiple InDesign documents and treat it as one book. All right. Yes, it needs to add pages to make it print evenly. Yes, correct. All right, next up. Let me make sure if I missed anything. The best part of getting it all set up. Automation, yes. I'm just reading through your comments to make sure I don't miss any questions, because we are at the end of what I am going to do today. Tell them about page numbering. I did, Colleen. All right, let's see if I missed any over here. Yep, I answered that one already. So Dana's asking a question. Would I do 2 layouts, one for print, one for EPUB? It depends. There's no reason why the EPUB layout couldn't be printed. So I guess I would think of it that way. And also in the EPUB, you could put, well, I wouldn't necessarily do 2 layouts. I might do multiple layers. So like, for example, maybe I'm putting a movie in my EPUB. So I might, obviously don't want that movie to print. So I would turn that layer off. I would have an EPUB layer that I turn off for the printing. What's the best way to publish a print book? I've used Amazon. I've used Amazon as a self-publisher to publish self-published books. Of course, there are all kinds of publishers out there. There are book printers out there that will print your books for you. It just really depends on what you're looking to do. All right, so let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. All right, great tutorial. Books a month. Cool. All right, if I missed your question, I apologize. I've scrolled through as many as I could see to see if I could see any that I didn't already answer. Yep, Amazon is great for self-publishing. EPUB would run instead of CMYK. Yeah, that's another distinction. So if you're doing a print book and your printer is still working in CMYK, then you would obviously have two sets of graphics, maybe one that are RGB, that are richer in color for the EPUB, and not as high resolution necessarily, and your CMYK for print. So yeah, in that case, I still would probably work in layers because a lot of things would be the same, but you could absolutely have two layouts or an alternate layout that would be for EPUB. All right, how to start the page numbering from 5 as page 1. Thanks. Okay, so you're going to make me do this. All right, so the way you would do it is you would go to the page where you want to insert what's called a section break. And then you would, I just want to see if I can do it from here. Numbering and section options. And then here's where you would say start the page numbering on page, start a section and start the page numbering on page 1. So if I click OK on that, page number and section, good. Yeah, so there we go. So now that starts page 1, page 2, page 3, and the other ones are still there even though they're not numbered. So it's called a section break. That's how you would start the page numbering on on a page that's further into the document to start over again on one. All right, with that said, I want to thank everyone for watching this. This has been cool. I've been having fun showing you how to make a book inside of InDesign. A question that comes up often and topic I've been putting off for a while now because it's a lot to talk about. And hopefully I gave it justice today. Hopefully you guys now have at least enough to go back in and now work knowing that you know a little bit more than you did hopefully an hour ago. So with that said, cheers everyone. Thanks for watching and we will catch you on the next one. Bye everybody.